Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's BA Insight session. And today we're going to talk about business analysis, leadership, and high performance. And I've got three excellent guests to talk all about that. So, as usual, let's start with some introductions. And I'll start with yourself, please, Deena.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Deena Priest. So my background is actually from many years in management consulting. So I haven't formally been a BA, but I have actually, well, I suppose part of my job in consulting has had elements of BA within it, but I did manage a number of BA teams in consulting, so that was interesting. But actually at the moment, I am a leadership and career coach. So that's what I've been doing for the last couple of years. So really working with corporate leaders to create more purpose-driven and high-performing cultures and careers.
That's perfect. Thank you, Deena. And obviously, bringing your leadership experience would be excellent for this session. But it's glad to know that if Graham, Charlie, and myself mention the BA terms, you won't be scratching your head, and I'm sure we won't get too technical anyway. Graham, I'd like to ask you for your introduction, please.
Yeah, hi everyone, Graham Newton. I've been a BA for about a decade, about 10 years. Started out very much as a junior BA and just kind of grew and grew. And over the past maybe 4 or 5 years, been operating as a principal BA or kind of strategy manager, like leading teams, doing kind of strategic and business analysis. I've recently started a new job. I'm 5 days in as head of BA capability, so principal BA essentially at the National Physical Laboratory.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Graham. And I promise we won't edit that to just turn your 5 days into X amount of days when I press submit this. So you'll be a lot more experienced when this goes live than you are now. That's good. And Charlie, your intro, please.
That's great. Yeah. My name's Charlie Payne. I've been in business analyst for about 7 to 8 years. Various different roles of seniority, a number of years as head of business analysis at kind of National Grid. We had a kind of capability about 60 BAs from permanent, contractor and different partners, organisations. And the last year I've been in management consultancy as a principal, a company called Credera, kind of a global boutique consultancy with kind of global reach. And I've got responsibility for our BA capability there, which is great fun.
Great. Thank you, Charlie. And thank you once again, everybody, for your introductions. So let's start with the first question in terms of, now, can you share your journey into business analysis or leadership, and actually how you transitioned to that leadership role to be part of that response as well? And I'll start with yourself, Deena, please.
So as I was saying, so I haven't officially worked as a BA, but in consulting, I think as we kind of started our careers as associates, we were basically moving around, the organizations in different capacities. And so a large kind of focus was on, this idea of, gathering requirements from businesses and really kind of understanding, what they meant and being able to then translate them back in a meaningful way to stakeholders. So I kind of have taken that kind of knowledge and understanding during my consulting career. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. And then when I sort of moved into a more managerial role, when I was at Accenture, at that point, I was really kind of managing a number of BA teams and really kind of, I suppose, understanding from them more of the technical aspects of it. So that's what my managerial and leadership experience, I suppose, specifically related to BA relates.
Okay. Thank you very much, Deena. And Graham?
Yeah, sure. My BA journey sort of begins with a good friend called Dan. In that, my background originally is in science and engineering, so I was a research metallurgist. Go and Google that if you want to. And I had a good friend who was a business analyst and said to me, "We've got a vacancy. To be a BA, you basically need to be able to think critically and kind of moderately likable." And I said, "Well, I probably nail at least one of those kind of two things." So I applied for the role and got the job, which was great. And I didn't really know what a BA was when I turned up on my first day as a BA. So there we go. But yeah, so journeyed through just, learning the trade, as it were, the tools, and like really enjoyed it. It really suited my kind of skill set and that engineering background of critically thinking, kind of solve problems, bring people together around a particular context to kind of figure it out a way forward. Like, it was very transferable. My journey into leadership just progressed as I became more experienced. Happened to have a really good leader at the time who really promoted and wanted to kind of see leadership skills grow in the team, a chap called Craig, and was really keen to give those opportunities to others to test out those kind of leadership skills. So started out managing a couple of graduates, and that was really positive for both me and the graduates. Yeah, generally progressed up through kind of managing then junior BAs, and then ultimately becoming principal BA, managing a team of about 15 or so kind of BAs within a particular kind of business domain. Yeah, and then gone through there. Now sort of my roles and my outset is to try and lead others, help others be at their best, and sort of really, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at and how I've got to where I am now, doing that role.
Great, Graham. I'll just interject and say you've missed out a piece. You did a serious amount of your management training leaving the BA profession for a year in another industry, and you kind of came back.
Yeah, so basically, I worked with me and Charlie, our old colleagues. So Charlie kind of pseudo fired me for 8 months, sent me off to BMW to do a principal BA/program management role for 8 months, and then happened to hire me back as a principal BA. And yeah, actually, that was a massively good experience because it broadens your horizons, right? When you step out of what you know, you learn different contexts. You're having to lead different types of people. And so, as Charlie said, yeah, a big part of my leadership experience just comes from like jumping in the ice pool of you know, a different context. And of course, you know, having worked alongside people like Charlie, again, who really wants to promote kind of leadership skills in others, and I've massively benefited that. So thanks, Charlie. Over to you.
I'm sure it helped as well, Graham, the fact that that you know, you had the opportunity to go away and then come back again, and maybe there might be a few people in situ as you did come back that didn't know you were there in the first place, so you can naturally come across a little bit more knowledgeable about the environment. You know, without obviously people appreciating the background. Yeah, excellent. Charlie, your view, please.
Yeah, that's right. So I kind of a very funky kind of career path into BA leadership, but also into business analysis as well. When I first graduated, I ended up in an aid organisation, and I was doing kind of financial admin, financial support, but I didn't realise that it had a lot of business analysis in it without knowing, you know, the profession. I was always an analyst, right? I was always understanding how things tied together. What were the problem statements? What was the root cause? What, you know, all of these kind of things, which are bread and butter of doing BA work formally, but wasn't formally actually in IT. And then I segued from my career into policing. I was a police officer for 6-7 years. So that's a different type of leadership. But a lot of your leadership skills in terms of dealing with people, conflicts, you know, challenge, negotiating, were kind of refined in there on a day-to-day basis to be able to, you know, act on your feet, right? Think quickly. And then eventually I went back to the aid organisation. They restructured and we wanted someone to set up a process improvement team. So again, a bit more closely formally to looking at process improvement, but, you know, maybe not on the IT side, but again, helping change management, ways of working, getting people to adopt. And I led a team there. So that's my first kind of step into formally having 4 or 5 people reporting to me, setting that team up, setting their structures and ways of working, which was really great fun. And eventually it led to me moving to National Grid. And that's where Graham and myself met. But Graham also referenced Craig. Craig was our head of BA at the time, and he was very instrumental to my career in kind of leadership because he was always keen to give people the chance to grow and did it in the right kind of way. He moved on roles, and I actually then slotted into taking over the capability 2 times. One time for a year as an interim, and while there's organisational restructuring going. That was great experience, just kind of taking what was there and kind of keeping it stable, moving away to another role within the organisation, more global size, and then restructure meant that a role more locally in part of National Grid, where I had kind of 50 to 60 BAs reported into me, where I'd already brought a good year or two's worth of experience as an interim role into that, which was great fun. That really helped me know the structures of setting up your first line of leaders and how to kind of get your teams work through. And then thankfully this last year or so, an opportunity to move slightly different into management consultancy, taking the industry experience and the leadership stuff with helping grow a BA team within the management consultancy organisation. And then how's that looking with client side, with local, you know, BAs on there, and also on our Credera side too. So that's been really good and a funny kind of career kind of way into leadership and management.
That's it. I mean, it's interesting actually that, you know, I think almost in all cases really the evolution wasn't just, probably no surprise, it wasn't a sudden one that you just leave school and just end up in a leadership role. You know, there is that opportunity to sort of like develop your skill set, whether it's be it as a BA or otherwise, and then sort of to work your way up, like looking after a small group or maybe just looking after some deliverables, and then sort of growing until you can start to pick up more responsibility and more team members. And that's actually quite similar to my own transition really into BA and into BA leadership. In you know, I was working on in a team, you know, got recognised for some transferable skills into BA. Didn't know what BA was at the time, like Graham. You know, and after a period of being a BA for a while, you know, embracing it and trying to share the things that I've been learning externally, you know, bringing back in. You know, it's a natural thing, I think, then to become almost like the lead BA and looking after a few others and helping support that team until you know, through my time at Capco and leading the training, BA training, it's a natural journey then into looking after bigger things and therefore sort of being you know, the lead in the community or the practice as well. So it's hopefully it's reassuring to anyone watching this as well that it's not an overnight journey. It's something that you don't even necessarily have to plan, but you can just sort of get comfortable at different levels as well. That's certainly come across from speaking to you so far. Excellent. And I think as well, during the conversation, you know, you've called out a few different milestones. I mean, like, you know, Graham, I'm not paraphrasing exactly, but getting fired and then brought back in feels like a couple of decent milestones. Charlie moving outside and taking over that role from the individual you mentioned as well. But perhaps, but we certainly cover if there are any additional milestones to call out. And I will start with yourself, Graham. So yeah, so were there any other milestones that you think sort of shaped your leadership journey?
I think one maybe just to call out, which was some really excellent training around something called facilitative leadership and creative problem solving, like creative problem solving being the more bread and butter of what we do as BAs. We problem solve and trying to do that in an innovative, creative way. But yeah, an organization called Perspective and a chap called Andy Wilkins who kind of is ran that course. Sort of introduced me to, you know, that as leaders, we're there to facilitate others and help others be at their best. And what are the common leadership traits that people really look for in their leaders? And that really shaped my thinking. So I mean, yeah, so I think both the experience and the people involved, as you said, like Craig and Charlie, and seeing their leadership style influence me, the opportunity and being trusted, have a crack, see how you get on. But also it does need to be backed up with a little bit of, this is what some of the theory is, this is what some of the research shows about what good leadership is, was really helpful as well. And particularly being a leader that facilitates others to be at their best is kind of a mindset that I think I developed, and that course really was kind of the seed of that for me.
Excellent. Thank you, Graham. Yes, it's very nice to talk about training as well. I think sometimes it can be overlooked, but I'm sure before I waffle on, I'll let Charlie give his perspective onto that particular question around key milestones. Is there any additional ones?
Yes, that's a really good question. I think, you know, that kind of first time you step into being responsible for someone else's kind of thriving in the workplace, you know, as a manager, I think is a really massive step. I think that's probably often harder than when you manage managers or you lead a lot larger, because you've gone from being probably competent at doing your job fairly well, recognized to be able to do it, to then being expected to use a different kind of skill set, which maybe you've not used before, different muscles, and you have to think differently, you have to act differently. Particularly that, I think the big transition is from saying, it echoes what Graham said, I can do this well, but actually need to help another person do it well instead of me do it well. And you have to really grow, I think, in that emotional intelligence there as well. That's a real big, I'm sure, Deena, you will really emphasize that from your leadership coaching side. That's a big milestone. I think if you get that bit going, and then that next role, when you lead others, you can help the newer managers know how to lead well, right? You know, that's a really kind of, and I always keep that core in me. So that first step it feels like a big jump. And because you care, especially if you care, right? Because you want the people you're reporting into you to thrive. And that's not always easy within an organization because there's other things at play that may get in the way of that. But you being clear about responsibility to help them thrive means the organization thrives. And then learning to let them do that and where to fail and where not to fail. Yeah, that's the big milestone for me.
Excellent. Yeah, certainly resonates a lot of for me. Deena, your view, obviously from a more leadership style perspective, of course.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I didn't come from a technical BA background, I think I sort of approached being a manager in a different way. So rather than kind of, really stepping into the detail and explaining to them, this is how you do X, Y, Z, I think I just naturally did take more of a coaching kind of stance with them, or a coaching approach as a manager. So I was really kind of focused on, helping them kind of find their own answers and own approach. I gave them lots of autonomy and trust and that sort of thing, maybe a little bit too much sometimes. But I really kind of wanted them to Graham's point, to feel kind of really motivated and enthused about what they were doing. And so my kind of real focus was on helping them have a sense of purpose in their role. So rather than kind of, I suppose getting stuck into the detail around, why are we doing this project and kind of that kind of thing, helping them take a step back and really reflect on the impact that their role was making in, overall to either the client project or the client organization, or even for their own careers. So how could they see, their work having an impact on them, like personally? What were they developing? Were they developing as an individual? Were they kind of building better communication skills? Were they developing stronger relationships? So really kind of helping them make that connection between the impact of their work and their sort of personal satisfaction.
Yeah, it's definitely that's resonating as well, because it's important that each individual's their own motives and levers get fulfilled as well, rather than just all follow a common model, I would say. Yeah, I mean, I guess as we talk about milestones, well, I mean, a couple of things that resonate with me and I naturally think about probably at two ends of my career so far, I would say. So one of them, probably just being aware for the first time of different levels of BA leadership at all. So it was certainly a nice introduction to recognise that, having been the only BA in the area, that there were some other BAs in the wider organisation, some of them more senior, some of them lead BAs. Seeing how they conducted themselves, how they helped to organise the team as well. That was almost like a first BA opportunity, if you like, to identify a related role model that was doing something similar to what I was doing before, and it gives you something to copy and try and put in the bank, as it were, and try and behave like that. I think probably at the other end of my journey so far was sort of that point where realizing that a leader doesn't have to do everything and everything better than the team as well, and that wasn't like a swift transition, I must admit. Someone is sort of being used to being very hands-on and getting involved in all the detail. It wasn't easy to let go of some of the detail at times, but I think similar to the point Charlie made, just being able to recognise that you can still get in the detail, but in a different way, in a more supportive sort of way, rather than having to push the way that I would approach things. And maybe that's trying to give people that autonomy, but the support was starting to be something I recognised as well. Probably the reason I probably recognised it at that point was, or at a certain point it resonated most with me, was that was something that I've always looked for as a BA, to have that support, but have that autonomy as well. So probably it's a natural thing to try and provide it to your team. I'm going to stick with you, Deena, actually, with this next question, as it's quite fundamental. Probably should have asked at the start, but in terms of how might you define leadership?
I think leadership for me is really just bringing out the best in other people. I think that's probably the simplest way for me to kind of explain it. And it's really just, and when I say bringing out the best in other people, I'm really talking about how do you really keep them engaged and motivated, in a way where they really want to be there and really want to do a good job, and are kind of, sticking to it for the long term. So really kind of that engagement and motivation piece.
Excellent, thank you. And Graham, how would you define leadership? I guess in your case and Charlie's as well, perhaps in the context of business analysis, if you choose to.
Yeah, I think like really like as Deena was saying, I think it's no, leadership is in by definition relational, right? There are followers and there are leaders. You know, you're not a leader unless you have people that want to follow you, and people, you know, not to kind of be hierarchical or kind of, you know, about it. But as you say, you want people to be at their best and to do what they can do best and be empowered to do that. And they, you know, in the way that you're leading them in the responsibilities that they've been given, whether that be BA or indeed any other profession. I think the thing for me around leadership, particularly in a BA context, is that it's a set of behaviors as much as it is a role. You know, like leadership isn't defined whether you've got like BA lead or principal BA or BA manager in your title. Like leadership starts with yourself, you know, leading yourself, you know, as BAs. Our role is intrinsically linked to other people because we don't own the problems that we're solving. We're helping to help other people solve that problems and add value. And so often that leadership is, you know, it comes in our behaviors towards others as we're leading stakeholders. So I think it, you know, I think within the BA profession, sometimes BAs might think they're not leaders if they haven't got that sort of seniority or kind of managing of others. But actually, because we're always working with people and often subtly leading them through workshops or kind of through what we see using our critical skills, thinking skills, to might be a better or more interesting solution. It's that set of behaviors as much as it is kind of a role. So yeah, so just to add on to what Deena said there, and yeah, thanks.
An interesting point here as well, Graham, about, you know, not necessarily recognising your leader. Perhaps like as a leader as well, maybe it's something we need to add to our agenda, like for the way we operate, is to recognise those in the team that are behaving as leaders and actually maybe pointing out to some of them sometimes. You know, but yeah, excellent points there. Charlie.
Yeah, wow. How do I add to what you both have said? I can echo. I think that phrase, a set of behaviours, really resonates. Like, I think I won't get this wrong. Harvard Business Review trait four big traits of effective leadership. I think it is. It talks about being honest, competent, forward-thinking, and inspiring. Right? Honest, competent, forward-thinking, and inspiring. So when you think about that in terms of what leadership is, there is that bit of kind of being in the front, leading. You know, therefore followers. You know. I remember my son when he was, I don't know, 3 or 4. We were walking in the woods, and I said, "Oh," he said, "I said I'm leading," but I was behind him, and he said, "Daddy, you can't be leading if you're behind." I was like, quite interesting. I think you can do it from the sides, absolutely. That servant leadership, but I think there is a bit where around the behaviours are you realise there's a responsibility to get stuff done, and I think there's people looking to you that need that kind of presence, whether that's the forward-thinking, inspiring bit, and displaying those behaviours where they can get confidence behind to enable them to do their work. Right, in so many ways. If I haven't got a responsibility to lead, I don't crave it. But when you've got that responsibility, you feel there's the need to do it well, right, to enable the followers or those that you're responsible for to do what they need to do well. So I think the behaviour is big for me.
No, for sure. I mean, and I think probably all that I can add really to what the three of you have added in those points is probably going back to the point Graham made about followers. And sometimes I think it can be difficult to sort of spend too much time identifying, if you're not in a formal leadership role, who might be your followers. Therefore, does that make you a leader? And I think certainly for me, I think it's probably easier to not think too much about that and just try and, you know, act in the way you would expect your leaders to act, you know, and try and act with the right integrity. And many of those qualities actually that Charlie called out a moment ago. And, you know, maybe by definition you'll become a leader if you do that. So it feels like they're the points I would make. I think sticking with yourself, Charlie, I know that, you know, you sort of called out some of these things already, but in terms of the qualities required for that are essential for high performance for BA leaders, I know you've mentioned things like honesty and inspiration, and I know there was 2 others. I'm sorry I've forgotten those, but we'll come back to it. But would you say there, what other qualities, or perhaps you might want to reiterate those qualities in leadership?
Yeah, sure. So I think back, the BA role is often it's a very challenging role in that you've got to go into situations where there's different opinions, different wants, and you've got to be quite brave by default, right? You've got to be quite courageous because you have to challenge it to do that role well, right? It's a challenging role in that you have to say, are you sure you need that? Is that really how it works? Are we, how are we going to bring this together? I see conflict. You can't hide. You can, but you won't get to what the right outcomes are and the right outputs need to be, right? So therefore, when team at Grid, it was really important to give and impart and encourage the team to be brave and to step up and to lean and to execute their roles well, right? So they had to feel very psychologically safe within the BA team as a group to come together where their leader can say, you can share exactly how you feel, the challenges, how tough it is, the difficult stakeholders, they're talking nonsense, whatever it is, and be safe to say so and know that we're going to be supported to work it through, right? Because if they don't have that psychological safety from their leader, right, then they're not going to therefore be brave to go outside of the camp to do their job really well. So does that make sense? It feels like absolutely fundamental and critical because we all feel like imposters, right? Most of the time, most days. And you've got to step up and you've got to say, this is how it's going to be, or challenge how this looks. So helping that confidence to do that. And when they get it wrong, to come back to a safe place to be able to say, I goofed up and that's okay. We encourage each other and we go again, right?
That's it. And I mean, it definitely resonates, Charlie, because there's some people that might be fortunate, you might be quite experienced, and therefore, you might know what to expect from your leaders, whereas there are others that perhaps don't, and they need that additional support to basically help them shape the way they are and help them react and work with the rest of the team. So absolutely resonate for sure. I wonder, Deena, perhaps share your view on the what are essential for high performance in that case.
I'm going to bring it back to coaching, not because I'm a coach, but because I really see that leaders who take that coaching approach with their people can really get under the skin of some of the challenges that go on for them. So to Charlie's point around, sometimes you find yourself in really challenging situations where, you've got to push back to the client and you've really got to make your point and make it heard and that kind of thing. I feel like people grapple with different things. So it's really important as a leader to be able to identify what is that person's specific challenge when they are potentially presenting something challenging to a group of stakeholders. Is it that they've got that whole imposter syndrome and, a bit unconfident, not really sure? Or is it they simply don't know how to present, for that particular meeting or whatever it is? So for a leader to be able to ask those coaching questions and get beneath the surface of what is the real challenge, I think that then really helps them kind of develop their people in a more meaningful way, rather than taking this kind of blanket, one size fits all sort of approach.
That's it. Yeah, definitely. And Graham, your view as well on the qualities essential for high performance as a BA leader.
Yeah, I think just to kind of really augment what's been said already, I think there's a really key piece around kind of being open and being curious. I think there's almost something you said, I think, John, a while back, like as a leader, sometimes you feel like you need to be the best or have the best ideas or have the final sign off or whatever on a thing. I think it's really important to say, no, what can I do to let you feel empowered and let go of those things so that you can kind of run with it and own it. I think that's a really important quality, not just of someone in a formal leadership role, but someone who's exhibiting that behavior at any spectrum across the kind of the BA profession. I think is a piece. I think there's also a bit around that bravery piece as well, around really knowing the value and confidence in the value that a BA can bring. Like we often talk about, I think, Charlie, you've kind of introduced this phrase of being like confident in your competence and like knowing what you're there to do and the value that you can add. And that really kind of gives you a really good anchor when things are really difficult, because you kind of know what you're there to do, and kind of when it doesn't go well, you still know that you're competent and you're confident in that because you've done this before. So I think there's a piece there, and that speaks into the bravery piece actually a little bit. And I guess maybe bringing that together, and something that I often joke about as my chief competence is being the idiot in the room. You know, both like it's brave to say, hang on a minute, I don't understand this, which you have to be brave to do that. But then often that helps to kind of model that leadership is that I'm not the expert. I need people to explain this, and you're elevating others. And by doing that, you're kind of bringing others into the conversation, into the room to help move things forward. So I think a combination of those things that I think just hopefully, I think augment what Deena and Charlie shared. Yeah.
Yeah, and it sort of brings together certainly some of the themes and the bravery, and recognising it's like two-sided really, and you've got to be brave as a leader, but try and empower others to be brave as well. Yeah, that certainly come across. I think the other things I might add to that is really, I think it's important to be, recognise that as a leader you will be required to make some decisions. So I think making decisions is certainly something that the team are looking for you to do at times, ideally. To make those decisions with as much data as you can, so you try and make the right ones. And I think somewhat related to that is sort of being in tune with not just the team, but also the organisation as well. And I guess it's probably touched on the point Charlie made earlier in terms of, you're supporting the team, but to the common goal as well. So I think there's things I would probably add. Deena, a question for you now, really, if I would, and that is really, how do you foster a high performance culture in the organisation or team?
Yeah, I think a really important one for me is continuous learning. So the growth and development of the team, because things have changed, certainly since I managed BA teams, things have changed so much. So technology, all these different tools and Power BI and all these type of things that people are using now didn't exist, when I was managing BA teams. So, making sure that people are developing in a way that's meaningful for them, but obviously helping kind of the organization as well. And just understanding what they need, really. So some people just need a little bit more, I suppose, focus and development. So that really comes out in the one-to-one conversation. So sitting down with them and saying, how do you need to develop? How can I help you? How can I support you? Having those nice sort of career development conversations with them as well, so they can sort of see where their career is going, whether they're a junior BA or, whatever it is that they kind of are working towards. I think that really helps keep everyone kind of enthused, engaged, and can, I suppose they can see where their career is going, and that keeps them motivated.
Excellent. Thank you, Deena. Graham?
Yeah, I think learning is absolutely critical. I think that learning in itself shows humility, right? Because you're saying, I don't know what I don't know. I want to learn and grow, not just on some of, the tools, but techniques, but just, stakeholder skills, all of that kind of stuff. So I think, the attitude behind learning is I'm growing. I've got a growth mindset. I'm going to be humble about my own skill set, which is key. I think, coming back to what Charlie shared a few moments ago around trust is critical. So that people feel safe. I think there's a piece around really valuing the different diversity of within the team, and I don't just mean that in I mean that in people think differently, people like to work differently, people come up with ideas differently. Some people like to think out loud, some people like to think in their head, some people like to make things better, some people like to make things newer, some people focus on decision with people, some people focus on decisions just by a rational task, and how do you actually not say one is right or wrong, but bring all of that kind of type of thinking into that problem solving BA space together and really, really value it and leverage it so that people can feel like they can work at their best and that their personal preference or style is really valued. I think is really key. I think a couple of other pieces is like modeling the way as it's really important to show your expectations, not just by saying it, but by doing it. Is really key. And actually celebrating success or indeed celebrating failures in a really positive way, that sort of encouraging the heart is really important. It's not, yes, you've got to have a shared vision, yes, you've got to enable, but actually just getting alongside someone and saying, yeah, we've got this, well done, actually you failed, you know what, who cares, you learned, let's go again. Actually, that encouragement of the heart, I think, is a really key thing, as well as building that high performing trust environment.
Yeah, I would agree, and a lot of things you said there, Graham, as well, they're all very much interlinked, aren't they? You know, it's
Big time.
the trust and sort of like build acts as the role model as well. A few other things that are certainly linked for sure. Charlie, your view.
Yeah, I love this question. I just wrote a few things down. I'm like, oh, you might have to stop me if I go on too long. So I had a real from my time in the policing. One of my most fond memories was working on a team that worked on busting drug dealers and on burglary team. We were quite a tight group team of 6 or 7 of us, and I would say it was the best experience I've ever felt and known of being part of a high performing organisation. Right, we were clear on our roles, we were clear on our objectives. We had great results, right? And it was hard work, but great work. And we would fall out, we'd have conflict, but we knew what we were doing and we executed and we loved it. And I look into that, the DNA of that, and taking that into leading into the corporate world, into business analysis. I've really strongly been an advocate with the teams I've had is right person, right role, right time, right? Because how oftentimes in project world, I need a BA. Any BA will do, right? You know, and you just put someone because they got pressure. No, right? How when I came back into leading the role at Grid, part of it was undoing or realigning people to their strengths, right? You know, because if you get your team using their skills well, they will thrive. When they thrive, their engagement goes up. If their engagement goes up, they perform better. 30% of the stats say on highly engaged team members, you get more for the same amount of paying organization. It makes sense to have a highly engaged team, right? And the way this has been really illustrated well to us, Graham and myself, from training is we were told once to write our name and our signature in our right hand, right? You know, if you was to do this exercise, you'd write it, and then you would say take the pen and put it into your other hand and write your name and do your signature and compare how both felt. Right? In your right hand, it feels natural, normal, effortless, don't think about it. We should be spending 80% of our time in our jobs doing that kind of stuff, where it feels natural, normal, don't think about it. And that's enjoyment, you thrive. 20% of your time should be when you're on your other hand. It's awkward, I have to concentrate, it goes slow. If you're spending more than 20% of that time regularly, up to 80% of the time in a role, writing with your wrong hand, you're not going to thrive. So the role of a leader is to get people to thrive, right? And that's why I say right role, right time, right place, right? And then you watch the magic happen. And I've seen it where we've moved team members around and, you know, I said, why are you in this part of the organization? I'd much prefer being on finance or in HR. So I'm like, okay, there's a project over here. Would you like to do it? Can I do that? Yeah, sure. Let's get you there. And then 6 months later, they said, Charlie, I'm so glad you did that. I can't believe. No, I'm like, well, it's not exactly hard, is it really? But it is, because you have to tend capabilities. You have to tend careers, right? And that's the role of the leader in an organization, is to look after that and say, can't do it right now, but we're going to get there because I know where you thrive. So, again, John, I could go for a long time on this because it's so important. Because a high-performing team is excellent when you experience it and to enjoy it. And not many people get the privilege of it, sadly. And I think if more could, work becomes much more fun.
That's right. Yeah, and it's showing. I mean, you demonstrated all 3 of you actually in your answers that, you know, it's not one size fits all. It's about understanding the individuals, you know, and it's adapting styles and opportunities as well for those individuals. Yeah, and I mean, certainly the point that Deena made right at the start in terms of the one-to-ones really resonated with me, because I think, you know, what I do a lot of, or try to certainly, you try and have those one-to-one sessions with everyone in the team that's been introduced to the team as I start a new team. Just understand what is motivating them, what drives them, what they do want to do, what they don't want to do, what they like to be involved in, or want to be known for. You know, fairly simple question. I'm not particularly asking any difficult questions, but it gives them the opportunity in that sort of safe environment. I think someone else mentioned that term earlier on. You know, whereas, you know, there's certainly individuals I've worked with in the past who maybe wouldn't feel comfortable sharing their particular needs in a group situation. Others might, but if they do, it'd be unfair to sort of like reward those that are willing to speak in a group and ignore those that aren't, you know. And I think maybe with those potentially quieter, more introverted individuals, you know, it's about also seeing how they want to be recognised for the good things that they're doing as well. Maybe they, you know, maybe it doesn't help just have a conversation with them one-to-one, find out what they want to do, but then scream and shout during the town hall about all the good things they do and make them feel really embarrassed, so they don't want to repeat it.
Yeah. Something else as well to add, John, is the creation of a well-being culture, a culture of well-being, particularly now because so many of us are working remotely, and then our work lives are blurred, and, you know, personal life and work and everything is just kind of becoming one. I think it's really important for leaders to check in on their people frequently to make sure that things are going well for them, you know, not just at work, but, you know, holistically. And I read something really ridiculous the other day. Well, not ridiculous, actually quite surprising. So 90% of people in the UK are on the verge of burnout at the moment, or they've had extreme levels of stress kind of leading to burnout. So I wonder whether the remote working is actually making that worse because of the fact that we're working longer hours and our personal lives and work lives are blurred. So you can't really have a high performing culture if you've got people kind of going down the track of burnout. So something for leaders to always keep a keen eye on.
That's right. Yeah. And I think somewhat related to that, but certainly what you've collectively spoken about as well. I think he's, you know, being okay as a leader as well to ask for the advice of the team, try and ask, you know, is my style working for you? You know, would you prefer me to do something different? Have I actually done something that doesn't work? You know, and try and encourage them to call it out. And going back to the point earlier around trust, you know, if I'm performing in a way that's not conducive to the team's performance, they should feel comfortable telling me and having no repercussions for it. Obviously, I'd appreciate that if put a big banner up outside the firm and telling everyone what my drawbacks might be, but at least having a conversation with a small group to let me know, you know, and then that way maybe they'll feel a bit more comfortable sharing what they need to develop as well.
Yeah,
I would say. Yeah, and I think yeah. Other than that, I mean, I think it's just probably re-emphasising what you said, so I won't spend too much time on that. But I think there's really it's helpful to have as much recognition and reward as you can introduce as it's humanly possible, really, to really give people the benefit of the leadership and the work that they're doing and make it almost infectious and make it sort of feel like the right thing to be doing, you know, for others to step into leadership roles in different ways, you know, whether it's just looking after an individual at a certain point or formally taking over a leadership role. Which takes us on to, I guess, a question of perhaps balance in leadership as well. And I wonder, Graham, you know, how do you balance perhaps the need for like detailed analysis or the need for the detail that comes with the work we do, and actually that maintaining the big picture, the strategic picture that we need to concern ourselves with as well as leaders?
Yeah, great question. I think, you know, that could play out a whole variety of ways. I think the first one is just to accept it is as attention, and not to try to kind of just go one way or the other, but to keep it's like a, you know, like an elastic band in your hands, knowing that you're going to be bouncing between the two. I think is a helpful thing to do. A few things that come to mind are, you know, certainly being clear on things like roles and responsibilities, like within the team. Like, actually, as a leader, what does that mean in terms of what your expectations within, like, across your department or your leaders around the detail or not? I've been in a variety of kind of leadership roles where the expectation of the level of detail has been different. So being really clear is really important, because then you can kind of manage that tension. I think coming back to lots of the stuff that, you know, Charlie was referring to about right person, right place, right time, is, you know, I would see my role as a leader to get the right people that can then smash out that detail really, really well, confidently, and anchoring them in a big picture that they know exists. So things like when you're going into a piece of work, when you're setting it up, the leader needs to make sure it's set up really, really well, so that someone can then go off and then get into the detail, and you set that up really, really helpfully, so that that's going to go smoothly and appropriately. So having a clear way to define a BA work package or a BA approach that you can constantly come back to, I think is a really good way to manage that. You know, when do you have that session of, is everything okay? Any blockers, any issues? No, fine, big picture stuff. Or if a stakeholder comes and I've got an issue with this particular piece, you've got someone that you can naturally then dig down into, because you've got that kind of clarity, that upfront expectations and approach, that you can then talk about, rather than it being just like a he said, she said kind of situation. So there are a few things that kind of jump to mind, I think, in kind of managing and balancing some of that tension.
Yeah, agree. Yeah. Charlie?
Yeah, it's a really good question, is that but one thing that springs to mind is, if as a leader you're into the detail too deep, too often, too much, that's not good. That's not just good for you, but that's not good for your team that you're introspecting on, because that borders on the micromanaging kind of side. There needs to be a kind of stop, hang on here. There is a skill to going in and going out and going wide, and going back in, going out and going wide, right? You have to have that tension. You need to be, that's a skill you have to learn. But certainly red flag is if you're in the minutiae very regularly, that's not healthy for you and for your team. Yes, you do need to know when to step in, right? Usually that comes around that there's been concerns raised, right? And then it's but you've got that. Can you step in when you've got the safety of your team, the trust is in place? Again, goes back to that milestone. That first move into management is often the hardest one to make that break, because you can do it quicker, and you've got to say, it's not my role to do it quicker, right? And I don't know if anyone listening to this is in that space. One really good book I found valuable, and I'm sure Deena's probably read it and advocates it, is by Marshall Goldsmith, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And it's a really good coaching book, and it kind of makes that point of just, you've got to separate and don't keep trying to improve what other people are doing. That's key for it. So be able to go in if required, tend to stay out as much as possible.
Yeah, makes sense. Deena?
I was just going to add, I think one thing that we don't do well in consulting as well, and this applies to being a BA, is we tend to work in silos. And I think it's really important to have that cross collaboration or cross-functional collaboration. So, don't lose sight of the big picture, just understand what everyone else is working on towards this kind of common goal. So I think that's a really key one. And the other one is ask the client for feedback. So very often we think that, we know what we're doing and it's all going really well. And then you have a conversation with the client and they will tell you, what they really think, how is it really working? Are you too much in the detail? Are you missing the big picture? Like, what is actually going on? So
yeah, definitely resonates, as all of the things you said are as well. I mean, I think just touching on the point that Charlie made as well around the detail, I think probably important as well that leaders don't feel that when they're in sessions with their own leadership that they have to speak on behalf of the whole team and seem to know everything possible in every level of detail. I think as a leader, it's perfectly acceptable to introduce members of the team to talk about topics that they're actually experts on, but give them the support, give them the training, give them the preparation, be there to cover them if, in those senior meetings, there's a bit of flak flying around, but don't try and learn everything everybody knows so that you can present it yourself. And I think for me, that almost the thing that enables that behaviour is probably some really good time management. And I think as a leader, you've got to give yourself time and carve out chunks of time to work with the team, to develop yourself, to work on the task you're expected to do, and to spend the time that you need to with your seniors. And probably a whole other bunch of chunks of time for other things as well. So I think as good as you can be at time management can probably help a load of things we've been talking about today. But on that note, I mean, I'm conscious of the time, and we've been talking about a really interesting and very applicable topic around BA leadership and high performance. So definitely appreciate all your insights. Feels like that's probably a good point to close things. So to do so, I'd just like to thank you all for your time. Thank you for your insights and for sharing them as well, importantly. So I look forward to hearing from you in the wider BA or leadership community in the future. So thanks, everybody.
Brilliant. Thank you. Great stuff.